the expert point of view. But in the end, it really comes back to business. And as several folks have said, we've been talking about PAT for 10 years. We've been talking about QBD. We're talking about it again today. We talk about it a lot. But in the end, businesses don't change unless there are some business benefits to be gained. And if you think about the factors that influence this, it's things like speed. A lot of the big pharma and the big biotech companies still need to be first. There are a lot of nimble, smaller companies out there. Productivity, it's perhaps still a very profitable industry, but it's getting more and more competitive. There's a lot of things that are making it have to be more competitive. And so there's all of these things going on. So with the list that long, and with all the things the speakers have said, you'd think that PAT and QBD implementation will deliver measurable business results. I do think so. So it seems a dead drop that people would adopt it and deploy it and kind of get on with it. But that's not been the case, and we've heard that again today. And I found this model a few years ago. I stole it from a guy at Rosemont named Dave Ivester, and I've researched it to try to figure out who developed it, and I don't know. But I'd like to give credit because I use it a lot. And there's 5 steps in this model to accomplishing a change. The first is having a vision. The second one is assigning resources to implement that vision. The resources need to have the skills to get done what they've been asked to get done. There needs to be a what's in it for me, for the individuals and for the company and for the teams that are involved in doing a change. And there has to be an action plan. And the yield of those 5 steps are a change. And what happens when any one of those steps are missing, first, is that change doesn't happen. But the consequence of the missing step has different definitions. And so if there's no vision, but you put people on it and they have the right skills, they're confused because they don't understand what the end game would be. If you have a vision and you don't put enough resources into it, the people that you have assigned get very frustrated. If the skills are missing, if you ask people to do things they're not equipped to do, there's anxiety involved with that, so change is limited. If the incentives are missing, you just don't get change, because if there's no payback, both for the individuals, the company, the team, whoever, things tend to drift back to the way it's always been done. And if you put all those things in place and you don't actually have a really good action plan to get it done, you have what you call a false start. So they try, but they don't accomplish it. And if you think about that, and you think about all the components that have to come into play to make a change, you have to question whether in our industry, in the life sciences industry, will we get this change? It's been a while. We haven't yet. So if you think about the dynamics for change, the pressure on the industry is getting greater and greater. Government-run healthcare is a factor in many places. We're approaching it in the U.S. None of us know where we'll end up, but many of the components of where we might end up are kind of scary for some of us. There's a lot of medicines coming off patent, and generics are very competitive. They already are low-cost producers. A real challenge for companies that have had not to focus on inventory turns and days on hand and things like that. In one of my I worked for 2 different life science companies in my career, and one of them, one of the metrics was a raw material came into the manufacturing process, and the day it was delivered to a distributor was more than 12 months. And it's very expensive raw materials, as you would imagine. So you get things like $3 billion of inventory in some of our life science companies. There's not as many blockbusters, and with biologicals and others, we're moving more toward personalized medicines. So there's a lot of things that would say there are drivers for change, and there's a business case. Allie and I have talked about this quite a lot, and with colleagues that are still, colleagues of his that are still at the FDA, they feel strongly that they've supported the change, and they've enabled the change. But I gotta say, every single one of our companies out there think that, yes, okay, they're supportive, but it's still really, really risky. And we've talked about that again today. So with that in mind, there is a lot of information in the press, if you research it, that say companies are thinking about it, they're trying, they're getting false starts, they're frustrated, there's a lot of things going on. But there are several indicators here that you'll see that people are trying, and there has been an uptick in new drug applications that have PAT components. I was very interested in what Barbara said about this European company that has got it going. They've got it together. They're doing it all the way from R&D through scale up into manufacturing. And it made me think about, I wonder if there's a single visionary in the company that just said, enough, we're doing this. I wonder if it was some business pressure. You know, I'd be very interested, I don't need the name to know that, but at some point I'd like to know how they got it done. Because if you think about the 5 steps to change, they must have had them. What did they figure out that the rest of us haven't been able to figure out yet? So as you think about your company and whether you're actually trying to get some of these things done, think about the 5 steps a little bit. Think whether you are actually demanding from companies like ours, Emerson, the technology that you need to drive this change. And we have money, we spend it on R&D every year. Even during the downturn, you heard Steve Sonnenberg say this morning, we didn't cut back on R&D spend, but we can't make this stuff up. If you can think of something that will help us push this industry toward QBD, PAT, analytics, that sort of thing, we're doing that, we are doing that, but if you can think of something, tell us, because we will invest in trying to get it done. I know it's tough for all of you to engage the FDA as a partner. It's a scary thought. But there are still some visionaries, isn't that right? It's a scary thought, because the idea is don't tell more than you have to tell, because we could get in trouble for it. But at some point we're going to have to work together to get that done. And just think about whether your company is making progress, if you have an intention to, and if so, then which of those successful change steps might be missing. I do think it needs a champion. I think it probably needs an executive champion. I'm not sure if it comes in operations or in quality. It probably doesn't come from the automation group, but all of us are enablers, and so when somebody shows a little sparkle of interest, let's jump on and say yes. Remember the elements to change. I personally think PAT has to be adopted eventually. We can't keep putting people, we can't keep having equipment utilizations that are down at the bottom of the industry, because capital is scarce now, especially now. And it adds to our cost when we have facilities that we don't use. So remember that we do want to hear from you. We do want to know what you need to make this work, and do try to influence us in every way, and by coming to Exchange and things like that, try to influence how we spend that R&D money to make sure we serve the industry that you represent well. Okay, questions and comments, and got a pretty good panel here.